We have recently opened up a free group and we asked everybody who joined, what is one question you have about starting or expanding a tutoring business? And the overwhelming majority of people asked, where do I get started? What do I do first? And that's a really good question. And you probably have that same question. So we are going to break down these very quick start little things that you should be doing in the very beginning to get your tutoring business started, like tomorrow. So yeah, Emily, what are some of the first things that we need to do to get our tutoring businesses started?
Yes. So like Jill said, we're just getting you off to the races here, just the basics so you can get started. But the very first thing you want to do is we sort of fit under the umbrella term of business logistics. So what you want to do is go on to either your local city or town, county or state website, their government website, and see what are the business startup requirements. So for instance, I'm in Massachusetts, so I go to mass.gov and there are sections in there that list, if you're starting up a business, what you need to do, listing like different requirements, filling out some paperwork. There may be a small fee that you have to pay that, and then pay back annually to keep your registration going. And then you want to find out if you do have to register, which you probably would as a business entity. And you're just going to, when you're first starting off, just be like a sole, what we call a sole proprietorship. You don't have to worry about, starting up that LLC or anything like that right away. We just want to help you just get started. And what you would do is set up what's called a DBA, which is doing business as, and so that gives you your business name entity. And in order to open up the next step, which is your business account at a bank, you have to have that in place with your local, whether it's county or state. So for me, it's a state. For Jill, she had mentioned she had to, it was her county, right, Jill?
Right. Yeah.
So the next step, bank, and open up that business checking account so that you can actually start receiving those payments. Okay. So Jill's going to get on to the next part, which is the basic setup.
Yes. And you guys remember that this is all the basics. Okay. So we're not saying don't get an LLC. We're not saying any of that, but we're saying as a tutoring business, you can literally start next week. You can start a business very quickly. And you just need to get a few things in a row to get it started so that you're kind of starting from a more solid ground, right? And the business bank account, a lot of people like to wait on that, but don't wait on that. That way, from that very first payment, you can track everything really easily so that when tax time comes, when you meet with a CPA, when you do get a little bit further along and getting your ducks in a row, you won't have to be scrambling for any of this. Like, you want to show that you really are running a business. Okay. And so those things are still really helpful to do, even if you're starting off small. So as far as your business setup, so we've got your logistics, and now just setting up some of the basic things to get your business going. So first, you want a way to track those payments that come in and those payments that go out. So again, you could get software for all this, but in the beginning, most of us just start with a simple like Excel spreadsheet or a document. I've even seen some people who just track it in a notebook. I think Excel spreadsheets are a little bit easier, and you can also like transfer them, send them. It's a lot easier when you do go to meet with a CPA if you have them in one place. And so you just want to track all those payments that come in through your business bank account. And you want to track all your payments that go out for those business expenses that you have. So again, those will be things that likely will be tax deductible, but you might not know until you talk with a CPA. But when the time comes, you will have your receipts and you will have your log of the payments you made, and everything's going to go in and out of that business bank account. So just set yourself up from the beginning to do it that way, so things don't get mingled in with your personal. So as far as like getting things set up for tutoring, like for that first client though, you need to know your fees and like basic policies. So like just a one sheet does not have to be super detailed in the beginning. Like Emily and I both have handbooks that we use, but we've been doing this for a while. So in the beginning, you just need to decide what is your fee going to be and come up with a fee, and you will likely raise it right now. Don't go too crazy with trying to figure out the most perfect fee. Now, in our cohort program, we actually show you how to figure out how much to charge. Okay.
Right.
So there are ways to figure out ways to do this much more thoughtfully. But right now, if you're starting tutoring next week, you need to figure out, what am I going to charge starting next week? And then get like one sheet of policies, like very basic. So Emily, what are some very basic policies like you might need in the beginning?
So once again, some of the sort of the popular things that come up, cancellations, right? Anytime, will you reschedule? Where, if you're meeting at a certain location, drop off and pick up. Supplies, if you have, specific materials that you want them to be able to have. Whether you allow families to be nearby, or do you just want to keep it to, you strictly between you and that student? Just simple things like that to keep the communication. And of course, at the very end, put your contact information for them to know what's the best way to reach you, so that there's no confusion.
Right. Those 10 o'clock phone calls are not okay for most of us. So you definitely want to say, this is the way that I prefer to be contacted. Right. And then a few other things too would just be, how do you accept payment? So that seems very simple, but like if they write a check, are they writing it to your name or are they writing it to your business name? Do you accept credit cards? And if so, like, how do you accept those? Things like that. So just kind of like spell that out. And then maybe just have a plan if you live up north, like Emily does, like, what are you going to do when it snows? But even then, if you're right at the beginning, you can just make that decision in the moment, because you're likely only going to have 1, 2, or 3 students. And so you can easily talk with them and say, hey, who wants to meet and who can't? And so just one sheet, like, don't go crazy, fit the basics in, and you can let families know that these, might change this summer or in the new school year. That way they know these are like some beginning policies. It will likely, get solidified in the fall or something like that. So
and when you first start off and when you're small, you have the freedom of that flexibility with your policies at the very beginning. I mean, you can be very firm in what you said from the get-go, but know that when you have your first few families starting off with you and students, things are going to be fluid at first. You have to see what works for you, what works for them, and make adjustments along the way.
Exactly. And that's the lovely thing about being in those beginning stages too. So it's pretty flexible what you can do. Yeah. So, and then the third thing you really need to know before you get started is, where are you going to tutor?
The physical space, right? Yes. Are you going to travel? Are you going to go? So what are some of the places that we might go to, Jill?
Right. You might meet at a library, although you will have to check ahead of time if your library allows you to tutor for a fee in their public spaces. Some libraries allow it, some do not. So you have to find out if that is allowed. You could travel to people's houses or have them come to your house, right? So we know lots of tutors who just tutor at the kitchen table, or maybe they have like an office space or something like that at their home. You could also meet up at, so I've met up at like local community centers, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a library, but it's like a community center that sometimes has rooms and classrooms and things like that. Or of course you can meet online. So that's also a very popular way. So you just need to figure out what is going to be that best way. So if you are traveling, that's wonderful. I think Emily traveled for a while too, right? At the beginning.
Long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So both of us have traveled. We've met at local places and we've had our own spaces. And so, so knowing that, but like, for example, if you travel and you're going to different places, then you have to actually decide, do I have time to get to those different locations and be home in time for whatever it is else I need? So if you are traveling, just know that your commute time is going to be an important factor. So when I was a traveling tutor, I like staggered my appointments literally by distance. So, here was my first one. And then here, this one was like 10 miles away. And then this one, as opposed to going back and forth and back and forth. That's how I was able to see those students after a long day and driving and the commute and all that. So just kind of think through those very basic things of where you're going to meet with them. And if it's at a public place, just make sure that they allow it. And then number 2, also check it out at the time that you will be tutoring. So the library that looks really great on a Sunday afternoon might not be fantastic on a Thursday afternoon when, wow, every tutor in the world happens to be there. So check that out. Just like go scope out the scene a little bit when you're doing your recon.
Such a smart idea. I remember having to do one of my Orton Gillingham observations in a public library setting because that's what the supervisor required, that we were in a public setting instead of in my office space. And there was a lovely group of teenagers sitting very close by. And boy, what a distraction that was. So yes, Jill, that is really, really important that you check to see, are there high traffic times in the library?
Yes. And one of the places that I was tutoring at, I found out there was only a few tables and every table was full the time that I wanted to take my students. So I just didn't realize it. So those are the little things you get to figure out as you are building your business. And
there are so many other creative things though. Like I have used classroom space from private schools. And when my office was in renovation, there are shared office opportunities where people might rent office space to you to help them defray the cost of their monthly rent. So there are lots of options there.
Lots of options, you guys. And so this is all just to get you started. Yeah. But of course, in Tutor Success Academy, we try really hard to help you with these basics and beyond. So if you are thinking, this sounds great, but also I'd like a little bit more help with this, or I've got some of these basics, but actually I want things to run more smoothly. I want that help with figuring out how much I should charge. Like, how do I charge appropriately? I want to set up policies and payment systems so that my income is regular and I don't have to worry about cancellations. I just basically want to set up a business that I like and that my family's like, right? Like I want to set up a business that's good for me. Definitely check out Tutor Success Academy because we work really hard to help you in all of those ways in our community and our cohort program. So definitely check us out.
For sure. And then finally, the fun part, I think this is actually the fun part. And that is,
oh my goodness,
spreading the word about you and your new and exciting tutoring business.
Wait a minute, hold on. So you mean I can't just create this great business and then keep it to myself and they won't just find me?
This is the part where when people find out that you have started your own business, your own tutoring business, they are going to be super excited for you. Trust me, they're going to say, oh, wow, especially if you already know a lot of teachers, then just spreading the word among your colleagues is going to be a really exciting time because they know kids, you know kids.
Yes. Right. Everybody knows kids who need help, right?
Right.
And email can be powerful for this too. You just send emails to people, families, I mean, I've gotten new students through a neighbor knowing that I'm a tutor and they don't have kids. They're older, they're retired, but they met somebody somewhere and said, hey, I know a tutor, right? And so they were able to do it that way. So just kind of start spreading the word organically, just let people know what's going on. And that's going to be your best way to get started in the beginning, is just simply letting people know that you're open for business, right? And who you help.
Yeah. And we go certainly much more in depth about marketing and getting the word out in new and creative ways, whether it's online and in person in the Tutor Success Academy cohort. So if you're looking to really look for a more strategic plan, certainly, then you want to check that out. But just simple organic reach, like spreading the word of mouth, phone call, email, really can be very, very helpful with just getting a few people right away.
You got it. Absolutely. So don't let it be intimidating. I know educators, sometimes we think, wow, we know how to teach, but we don't know how to start a business. So get just a few basics down just to get started, and you get to start slow. That's the beautiful thing about a tutoring business, is you can just start with one child, one time. Get a few of these little basics done and just hit the ground running. And so we are cheering you on, and we cannot wait to see what beautiful tutoring business you build and how you help kids in our community and even adults in the world. So thanks for being here with us, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.